alcoholism that might be helpful for.
What about even like if we find ourselves picking a fight? You know, I found myself like just blowing up over the dumbest thing, and then this turns into this big blowout with my husband or with my kids or with my friend, and I'm in the midst of this and I'm fighting this battle going, how did I get here? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes back to what triggered that feeling. I'd say the behavior is the fight. Where did that come from? What were you feeling? Were you feeling underappreciated? Were you feeling neglected? Were you feeling like you were frustrated or that people were not valuing you? Were you feeling hurt? What was the feeling and where did that come from? Stepping back to that. You're absolutely right. There's some pieces of this that are really going to be big and glaring that you can say, oh, well, sure, I can see that. But we can go back to basics. And I think that's a really common one where we're finding ourselves fighting because we do that with safe people and we let those emotions out with them. And it's sometimes, let's just back up. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? Kind of a basic example where I had to do this in my own life, and it wasn't a bad thing necessarily, but I can remember shortly after my mom passed away, I was just having this day where I just was like crying and just sad. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like she's in a better place. I know that, you know, she's not dealing with her disease anymore and she was struggling for years. I should be happy. I don't know why this is such a hard thing. If I backed myself up, as crazy as this is, on a morning show, they played a little clip of the song Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. It was one of my mom's favorite songs. It was my trigger. I just didn't catch it. But it was in my head, and that was there, and it was just like, that happened, and I don't have my mom anymore. I can't call her if I want to. Set the stage for the whole day. But when I realized it, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what it's from. How silly, but not really. I just need to be aware of those triggers. And it's a different kind of example because it's certainly fine to grieve and to process things. But sometimes you just have to go back, where did that come from? I was doing fine, all of a sudden I wasn't. So that's kind of a more basic example of that, but it still works. Yeah.
Even going back as far as like childhood trauma and those things that can create triggers later on in life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Things that if you've had bad interactions, I think I talked before, whenever I felt like my intelligence was being questioned, it took me back to times when I was younger when that happened. So even to this day, if that happens, man, it just sets a stage. And it turns me into somebody that I don't really like. So catching those triggers.
Yeah, and giving yourself grace when you don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, I think the live stream went down for a second. I don't know exactly how long it was down for. But can you just give us maybe just a quick recap for somebody that's just catching up right now?
Absolutely. So we've been talking about how our brain is this amazing thing and how, you know, we make pathways in it. And when we choose to stop our thoughts and to catch them, we can say, this is not a good thought for me to be having. This is something that I really need to work through. We can catch it. We can make a new path. We can let that other one just grow over and start new. We need to be gracious to ourselves when we don't do it perfect, because we won't. And then we were just kind of talking about when we find ourselves in behaviors, sometimes we have to back up. Because the way that a therapeutic technique works, which is called CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, and it makes such sense, our thoughts trigger our feelings, trigger our behaviors. Yeah. So if you just kind of back it up and catch the thought, everything changes on that path. You know, we're kind of in this zone of talking about paths. So catching the thought. And sometimes we have to start at the feeling because that's a symptom. Yeah. And we just have to backtrack. What happened right before that? What was I feeling before that? What was I thinking before that? And you can really just go back and retrace your steps to find where the thought was. And then that can change the pathway because you can stop yourself and think a different thing.
Stopping the spiral.
Yes.
Of toxic thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So you have an exercise for us.
I do.
And you'll walk us through that. But as someone who is watching maybe, who's like, I know what my thing is.
Yes.
and I don't know where to start, or I don't know how to move forward from that, or I don't know how to take action.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
So I'm trying to think of a really practical example of this. Here's something that I feel like a lot of people in the Christian community deal with, is finding a way to forgive yourself. Sometimes we do things in our lives that are hurtful to other people, and we have a hard time to forgive ourselves. Anybody else does this, we can forgive them on the spot, but we can't forgive ourselves. And I've worked a lot with people who have said, you know, I just can't do it. I really messed up. I'm so hard on myself. I can't do this. And so when we have an issue like that, sometimes I have to say to them, you've got to pick up your thing and do something with it. So for me, I learned this technique of guided imagery, and it has been so powerful for me. And I've used it many times, sometimes on a daily basis. And this was something for a gentleman that I've worked with recently, that this seemed like it finally hit home with him. That he can do this, he has control over this, and he can let go of this thing he's been carrying for a long time. So that's kind of the idea of it.
Okay.
So I asked both Liz and Dustin to be very brave and to think of a thing, because we all have it. We all have something. What's the thing that you can't let go of, that you're struggling with? In this series, my prayer is we're finding some of those root issues, not just the symptoms, but where they come from.
Yeah.
And so what I'm asking them to do is to find a way to pick that up and to do something with it. So, are you guys ready to try this?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is for you guys watching too. I'm going to walk through this. If you feel comfortable to do this with us in the moment, please do. If this is something you just need to observe and then maybe try tomorrow or in a couple of days, that's fine too. But it might feel a little awkward at first, but it can be really powerful, and it can really do a lot in the way of processing these big things. So the first thing I would say is get very comfortable in your seat. You want to be somewhere where your arms can be down and you can just be calm. We're going to start with a breathing technique. So for those of you who are singers or have ever taken choir, your diaphragm right here underneath your ribs, we're going to pretend it's a balloon. So you may have heard, like, you could do a breathing technique, breathe in 2, 3, 4, 5, breathe out 2, 3, 4, 5. Please don't do that. That's going to make your heart race. So I'm going to teach you belly breathing. So think about babies when they breathe, you watch their little tummies go up and down. That's what we're doing. Okay. So there's a balloon right here. We're going to inhale and we're going to inflate the balloon. So we inhale, we inflate that, and then as we exhale, we want to almost crunch our stomach like we're really getting the air out. So practice that breathing just for a little bit. We're inhaling, inflating the balloon. We're exhaling, we're getting all of that air out. So what I'm going to ask for Liz and Dustin, and also you, as you're getting used to that breathing, as you're comfortable, close your eyes. And just kind of get in that space where this starts to become a normal thing. It starts to become common. This starts to become just how you're breathing. So as you're doing this exercise, what I want you to do is start to become aware of how you're feeling. Can you feel the chair against your legs? Can you feel a pillow against your back? Can you feel your clothes against your skin? Can you feel your hair? Can you feel the warmth or the coolness of the room? So at this point, I would like for you to imagine there's warm water, warm like a relaxing shower that's going to start pouring over your head. So imagine as this water pours down, as you continue to take deep breaths, the water comes down over your face, and you feel every muscle relax. Comes down over your neck and your shoulders. You feel those muscles relax. Over your chest and your arms. And you feel yourself getting heavy and sinking more into the space where you're sitting. You feel your back pushing more against where you're sitting, your legs, and that warmth is now going over your stomach and your thighs, over your knees and your calves, and you feel that warmth go all the way out, all the way over your toes. Sit in that just for a moment. Feel that peace. Know that you're safe. Know that this is a good thing. So what I'd like you to do now that you're relaxed and you're breathing deeply is to imagine yourself in a forest. Maybe it's about mid-afternoon. The sun is shining through the trees. You can feel the warmth. Maybe you notice the sound of birds or insects or the wind rustling through the trees. You can smell the pine in the forest. You feel at peace and you feel calm. You can look around and you can see the beauty of it. And as you're looking around, you notice that there's this backpack. It's a satchel. And for some reason, you feel like you have to pick it up. And so you do. As soon as you pick it up, you notice it's heavy. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's burdensome. It's not something you want to pick up, but you feel like you have to. And inside of it is that thing. Whatever that thing is. That inability to accept. That hurt from your past. That pain. That discomfort. That thing. Whatever it is. And it's taken on a form and it's taken on a weight. And you have it strapped to your back. And before you know it, you start walking. And every step is harder. Everything is heavier. Everything is harder. This doesn't feel good. That beautiful day you were enjoying a minute ago, you can't even notice it anymore because you're weighted down. But as you're walking, you get to a clearing and you look through the trees and there's a hill. At the top of the hill is a cross. All of a sudden, you start to feel like there's hope. All of a sudden, the weight, even though it's still the same, you can handle it. You have the strength, you have the courage, you have the ability to carry it, and you walk up that hill, that steep, uncomfortable hill, but you can do it. And as you get to the top, on that cross, you see Jesus. And you make eye contact with him. And he looks at you and he said, "You don't have to carry that anymore. I died for that. That's why I'm here. Give it to me. Put it down. This isn't yours to carry. It certainly has never been yours to carry alone. Please, let it go. It's paid for, it's over, it's done." And with that, it just drops off your back. And you feel relief. And you feel that weight lifted. And you feel lighter. And you open up your eyes and you look up at him and all you do is say, "Thank you." And you turn and you run down the hill and you feel weightless and you feel joy. And you can enjoy the day again. You can enjoy the forest. You can enjoy the sounds, the sights, the smells, all of it. Because you left it where it belongs. When we tell you to let go of it, it doesn't just go into thin air. We're giving it to the one who died for it. So sit with that feeling, with that peace, with that joy, with that comfort. Take a few more breaths. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into the room. So, I know, it's an intense thing, but I want to check in with you guys. How was that for you? What did that feel like? Was it difficult? Were there parts that weren't? Process that a little bit with me. How was that for you guys?
Liz, you go first.
I think for me, it was, I could really feel that weight as I'm, carrying it up the hill, and even imagining that I couldn't, I could no longer carry it on my back, but I'm dragging this heavy thing up the hill. And then after leaving it and turning and coming back down, and as you said, enjoying the surroundings, and it was a weight lifted in a sense of freeing, kind of we were talking about the Little House on the Prairie earlier, but running down the hill just free and feeling lighter and feeling joy, and just I think even a sense of possibility of what could be, having left that behind.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Just kind of seeing the hope in the future that could be without that. Because how do you enjoy anything with that on your back?
Yeah.
You don't. Or you certainly can't enjoy it to its fullest.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Dustin.
I think I had kind of Well, first I was like, if you're at home watching, you don't feel as awkward as we do because no one's watching you. But I think I just had this really clear moment of imagining, like, kind of opening the bag up and looking inside of it. I don't. It's kind of a weird way to think about it, but like, I was just holding this thing.
Yeah.
That I could, and I was like looking into the bag and thinking of like words, and not. It was kind of, not as concrete of a picture.
Yeah.
But I think there was something meaningful about going, why am I carrying? Like, that's kind of how I felt. Like, why do I have this?
Yes.
Like, I don't need to have this.
Right.
I don't know.
Why am I carrying this? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we talked a little bit last week about externalizing it. It's this thing that I have to deal with. It's not part of you. Never in the midst of this was I saying, now cut off your arm and leave it, It's not you.
Yeah.
But we're choosing every day to pick it up and drag it with us. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And there is such freedom in just dropping it, right? And here's the thing, and we talked about this a little bit ahead of time, but you're going to go back to it at some point, and that's okay. It would be really amazing if you never went back to it. But here's the thing. Maybe you left it for 30 seconds. Maybe that's the very first time for 30 seconds you actually gave it back to Jesus. Maybe next time you can take it back for a minute or 2 or 3, and you're going to get better at it. It's progress, and it takes practice, and it takes intentionality. You've got to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, it's a symbolic thing. We know Jesus isn't still on the cross. But to know that he died for sin. Our stuff is connected to sin. Is it always my sin? No.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a sin that somebody else imparted on me. Sometimes it's sin because there's sin in the world.
Yeah.
And we just can't let go of it. But Jesus is calling to us but why? I died for that. I had a unfortunate interaction with a relative shortly after I had learned this. And it wasn't even a big deal, but it hurt me. It hurt me, and I felt those wounds come up. I'm not good enough. They don't think that I'm worth it, and I hurt. And I remember going back to the room where I was staying in their house, and I closed my eyes, and I remember taking that pain that I felt and putting that in my pack. Taking that pain in that instance and taking it up the hill and saying, Jesus, you said you died for sin. Well, this conflict wouldn't have happened if sin wasn't in the world, so you died for this. And I could drop it.
Yeah.
And I didn't hold on to it anymore.
Yeah.
There's freedom in that.
Yeah.
And that's a tangible way, in a sense, for us to take this stuff and to be like, here.
Yeah.
Here. It's not mine. You're right. You're going to keep going and picking it back up. You just are. It's part of it. But you can get better at it and better at it. And sometimes for me, it's that visual that I need. And that reminder that Jesus is saying to me, but I've got this. We're not just letting it go into the, into the unknown, sorry.
On a balloon.
On a balloon, yes, on a cloud. Just it floats away.
Yeah.
We have a place to put it.
Yeah.
Because there's also some uncertainty about that. What's floating around? Is it going to land on me again, right? But if I can say I'm giving it to Jesus, I'm giving it to him, because he can handle it so much better than I can, and he already died for it.
Yeah.
I don't have to carry this around with me anymore. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
What a wonderful gift we've been given in that.
And I think so freeing, too, what you said about maybe it's not necessarily the sin that you're carrying, but what someone else has imparted on you. Because I think a lot, for me, of like my stuff results from my parents divorcing when I was a kid.
Sure.
And my dad leaving and never, ever talking to him again. Yeah. And so there's a lot of abandonment and all of these kinds of things, right? Where now I'm like walling up and protecting myself from relationships with people because are they going to leave me too?
Yeah.
But it's like that that sin that was imparted on me is now causing me to impart my own sin on other people, and people are suffering in relationship or not with me because of that. And so it's just, I think, really interesting even to see that pattern.
Yes.
And I think helpful for people to remember too that like this can be a cycle
Yes,
and
it
something
sure
that they
can.
should work through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can break it.
Yes, absolutely.
But you can break it.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to look at it. You know, when I've talked with people about this, the reason that we have to talk about mental health, the reason that we have people struggling with depression and anxiety and addictions and all sorts of different things is because there's sin in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be like, well, you did this, and so this life doesn't work that easily. It very well could be a sin imparted on you, or it could just be sin in the world. You know, we were talking a little bit ago. You know, I have relatives that lost a baby. They lost a baby because there's sin in the world. Sin brings death. They can take that to the cross too. They can leave that there. I don't understand this. I don't like it. It happened. Here, Jesus, you died for this.
Yeah.
I can leave this here.
That's so good.
Hey, I'm going to check and see if we have any questions. I think there was a book that you wanted to talk about a little bit.
Yes. There's a great book releasing within the next few days. It's by Jenny Allen, and it's called Get Out of Your Head, Stopping the Spiral of Toxic Thoughts. You can find it on Amazon. It really goes into some of this awesome, heady, brainy pathway stuff, which is so fascinating to me. And so I think you can, like I said, find it on Amazon. You can pre-order it now and wait for it to come out. What I love about it is that it goes into like all the brainy, sciencey stuff, but then she brings it back to Jesus too.
Yes.
And so I think that is so important to remember. And God created us. He made our brains to be spongy and can change. And that's the beauty of that too. So check out the book, again, on Amazon. You can pre-order. It'll be a great resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
This isn't my computer, so can you...
Oh.
Thanks. Perfect.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties, yes.
Exactly. I don't see any questions.
Okay.
But I'll let you know.
All right.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Any other thoughts or resources that you might have for people about this, or if they want to learn more about the science behind it?
Yeah.
Or if they're not sure how to begin to create the new path, what are like some tangible steps that they can start taking maybe this week to do that?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about being aware. I think thought journals are great. If you can just keep track of your thoughts. You might be having thoughts that you're not even realizing that you're having. You know what? We are all very blessed. We've got a little computer right on our phone, right? So we can pull up that notepad and we can just type in, you know, I'm having this thought, or this came up, or man, I'm thinking this a lot and I didn't even realize it. So catching the thoughts, keeping a thought journal is great. And you know what? We're talking about the brain. I think it's also important to know that sometimes we're dealing with things and we do have to approach the idea of medication. You know, we talk about how people struggle with that because they'll say, well, you know, it's not like diabetes. Like you've diabetes, you have to have insulin, you have to work with that. Okay, but the last time I checked, the brain is part of your body. And so sometimes we need that help. And so just to let you know that I hope that we can kind of take that stigma away too. Everybody is certainly allowed to your own opinions on that. But if that's something that you're struggling with, you know, I would love to have that conversation with anybody struggling on that, saying, you know, I've been in this depression for a really long time and I can't bring myself out of it. Or that guided imagery thing sounded great. I can't even do that. I am so down. I can't even get myself to do that. Well, you might need something to kind of kickstart some of those chemicals in your brain again to get you to the point where this all makes sense, where this can work, where you can make the change. And that's fine. That is fine. So just saying that, you know, if you're struggling with this, I was telling them earlier, I couldn't do this at first. I would panic. I would try to calm down and I would panic. I can't relax. You know, sometimes we need help in that area too. So just to kind of put a plug in there too, that sometimes we put stigmas on things that we don't need to. And so if that's something that somebody is struggling with, I'd be happy to have that conversation. And, you know, while I'm not medical, I have had a lot of sort of basic training on that and some education around it, just to know that it can be helpful. And God has given doctors the ability to make these medications that can be helpful to us.
That's great.
Okay, so we
Any
do have a
questions?
question.
Fabulous.
Kind of, if the decisions in your life
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that created these pathways,
Yeah.
how does that impact versus if you feel like maybe somebody else influenced
Yeah.
those pathways being created in the first place?
Okay.
Is it different?
Interesting.
Can someone else make them for you? And if you made them yourself, is that harder or easier to deal with?
Well, I think it really depends on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that there can be some things. I think about abuse. You know, that's a hard one. It's hard to understand why, how, what were people thinking, but at the same time, it's hard when it was your own decision too. So I don't know as though one is necessarily easier than another, but here's the wonderful thing that I know: we can take it all to Jesus. If it happened to us, if it happened because of us, we can take that to Him. We can take just the poor decision making and say, here's my stuff. I make these horrible decisions. I've had terrible repercussions because of these decisions, and I have to give them to you. And I am going to start making new choices and catching my thoughts and making new pathways so that I can make new feelings and new behaviors. We can take all of it to Him. So while I don't know as though one is necessarily easier or harder than the other, the great news is you can take it all. You know, if it's sin that's just in the world, if it is sin that has happened to you, if it is sin because of your own choices, it all can go to Him. He died for all of it.
For someone who's skeptical or just maybe just seeking Jesus or just learning about Jesus and is really, I'm just going to give it to Him. Like, what would you say? Like, what are some ways that you can kind of help them in that process too?
Yeah. I get it. I get that it can sound like, well, we just got into a whole bunch of church talk and I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And here's my challenge, and maybe this is too simple. What have you got to lose to try it? You know? The one thing that I so appreciate about the seekers looking and trying to just understand is that, you know, Jesus also says, seek me, you'll find me. You'll find me. So I feel like it's a great first step. You're trying it, and what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
You've tried other things, and here's what I know is this is the most powerful. And I can say that for myself, but I can say that for people who have come to me and have been broken and are trying to work through things, and they're saying, I've done this treatment, I've tried this technique, I've done this thing, and it's not working. And then we say, all right, well, let's try this. Yeah. And it works. And it makes a difference, and it can be a change. Because we're finally saying, you know what, I can't do this on my own. But there's somebody who can. Yeah. There's a higher power that I can turn to. And so I think that's where I would start, you know? Yeah. And the great thing is, too, is we have resources here that can help you starting off. You know, at starting point, is that correct? Where they can start coming in and asking questions. Maybe it's like, you know, it sounds good, but I have a lot of questions. We love questions. Yeah. Bring them in. Let's talk about it. Yeah. There's no question that we're going to scoff at. So we have some resources to help you get started. And I really just say, what have you got to lose? Let's try it.
Yeah. So good, so good. Hey, I think we're going to close up, but I think there's just a couple more things if you wanted to share.
Yeah, we've got another great resource for you as well. Coming up on Monday night, we're going to be having a community conversation about anxiety and depression with a guy named Scott Cypers. He's going to come and he's going to walk us through this process and kind of help us learn. This is really great for parents, for students. I think it's a great resource for everyone.
Absolutely.
Really to learn to have these conversations, because I think anxiety and depression are just so prevalent and things that like you were saying have such a stigma attached to them. And so join us for this conversation on Monday night, 6:30 here at Eastern Hills. We will post the link for you to register. We have childcare available for your kids as well. This is a great way for you to be able to come, and even if it's not something that maybe you're struggling with, to be equipped to be able to have a conversation with somebody who is. I think we've all, we know the statistic is 1 in 3 that are struggling with anxiety and depression. And so, what if we could be that person that could help have that conversation with somebody who's struggling, or maybe we're struggling and we don't even recognize it yet, that we can start to learn a little bit more and seek out that help. So, yeah.
So good.
coming up
Cool.
Monday.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back next week with the last episode of the
Crazy.
online class.
Mhm.
It's been great and great to have you guys with us today.